Imagine gazing at the moon only to realize you own a piece of it, but who really owns the moon? A question that has tickled the minds of many, from curious children to seasoned astrophysicists. A question that has sparked debates, fueled ambitions, and even ignited wars. For centuries, the moon has been an object of fascination and reverence. Ancient civilizations, from the Greeks to the Mayans, worshipped celestial bodies, with the moon often holding a prominent place in their pantheon. They considered the moon as a deity, an entity beyond their grasp and ownership. As we moved into the Age of Enlightenment, the moon transformed from a divine entity into a scientific curiosity. It was no longer just a glowing orb in the night sky, it was a physical body, a potential territory. Yet, the question remained, who can lay claim to it? In the 20th century, the space race between superpowers brought the moon closer than ever before. With the famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," Neil Armstrong etched the presence of humans on the lunar surface. But did this historic step translate into ownership? Fast forward to today, as private entities and individuals join the race, the question of lunar ownership takes on a whole new dimension. From entrepreneurs selling lunar real estate to corporations planning lunar mining operations, the moon is now viewed as the next frontier of commercial exploitation. Yet the question persists, who really owns the moon? Is it the public domain of all humanity, as dictated by the Outer Space Treaty of 1967? Or can an individual or corporation stake a claim based on exploration or occupation? These are the questions we will explore in the coming segments. As we delve into the intriguing history of lunar ownership, prepare to have your mind blown. There's a whole universe of debates, controversies, and fascinating stories awaiting us. And remember, the next time you gaze at the moon, you might be looking at a piece of real estate that's out of this world. The year is 1969 and mankind takes its first step on the moon. But does stepping foot on the moon mean owning it? Welcome to the Apollo era, a time of unprecedented exploration and discovery. This was when human beings first left the confines of our own planet and ventured into the vast expanse of space. When astronaut Neil Armstrong planted his foot on the lunar surface, he left more than just a footprint. He left a question that still lingers. Did the United States, by virtue of being the first nation to land a man on the moon, stake a claim to it? One might think that the concept of first possession applies here. After all, in the age of exploration, the first nation to discover unclaimed lands often claimed them as their own. But the moon is no ordinary land. It's a celestial body, a part of the cosmos. Does the same rule apply? The answer to that lies in the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. This international agreement, signed by the United States, the Soviet Union, and many other nations, lays down the law for all of outer space. It clearly states that no nation can claim sovereignty over celestial bodies. In other words, no country can claim to own the moon, Mars, or any other part of the cosmos, regardless of whether their astronauts have set foot there or not. The moon, as per this treaty, belongs to all of humanity. But here's where things get interesting. The treaty talks about nations, about countries. What it doesn't mention, however, are individuals. It doesn't say anything about whether a person can claim a piece of the moon as their own. So if nations can't own the moon, can individuals? Meet Dennis Hope, a man who claims to have exploited a legal loophole to become the owner of the moon. In the early 80s, a peculiar man named Dennis Hope made headlines worldwide. He declared himself as the owner of the moon. But how? Well, he claimed to have found a loophole in the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. This treaty, signed by over 100 countries, including the United States, Russia, and China, prohibits nations from claiming celestial bodies. However, Dennis Hope argued that the treaty says nothing about individuals or corporations making such claims. In 1980, Hope sent a letter to the United Nations, stating his intention to claim the moon, along with all other celestial bodies in our solar system, barring the Earth, of course. He was setting up a lunar real estate business. When he received no objection, he took that as a green light to proceed. Despite the obvious skepticism, Hope's venture, the Lunar Embassy, has reportedly sold over 600,000 acres of lunar property to date. Buyers receive a certificate, a site map, and the assurance that no nation can dispute their claim. However, the legal community has its doubts. Many argue that Hope's interpretation of the Outer Space Treaty is, well, hopeful at best. The treaty's intention was to prevent any single entity, whether a nation, an individual, or a corporation, from claiming ownership over celestial bodies. Others note that the UN's lack of response to Hope's letter does not equate to legal validation. Legal experts argue that silence cannot be interpreted as consent in international law. Yet regardless of the validity of Hope's claims, his story raises a thought-provoking question. What happens when corporations, with their vast resources and influence, enter the picture? Could they exploit loopholes or even pressure governments to amend treaties to serve their interests? While Hope's claims are disputed, they raise a fascinating question. What happens when corporations enter the picture? In an age of commercial space travel, the moon is no longer just a dream, but a potential business opportunity. In fact, corporations have started to cast their gaze towards the moon, eyeing its untapped resources with keen interest. The moon, a celestial body that's been a source of human fascination for millennia, is now seen as a potential goldmine, brimming with mineral wealth and scientific treasures. However, this presents a complex web of legal and ethical quandaries. As we dive deeper into the 21st century, the moon has become the subject of economic speculation, and the laws governing its exploitation are still in their infancy. Who has the right to extract lunar resources, and who will regulate these activities to ensure the moon isn't stripped bare or damaged irreversibly? This is where the Artemis Accords come into play. This recent agreement, spearheaded by NASA, sets guidelines for the behavior of private companies in space. It's a pioneering attempt to lay down the law, quite literally, in the final frontier. The accords stipulate that space activities should be for the benefit of all humanity, and that any exploitation of lunar resources should be done in a sustainable manner. However, critics argue that the Artemis Accords are not comprehensive enough, and that they favor the interests of the more technologically advanced nations. They worry that the moon could become the site of a new kind of imperialism, a lunar land grab, if you will. As we venture forth into this brave new world of commercial space travel, we'll have to navigate these complex legal waters. The moon, our closest celestial neighbor, is now the stage for a new kind of frontier dispute. The stakes are high and the implications are profound. The question of lunar ownership, once the stuff of science fiction, has become a pressing issue in international law and diplomacy. It's a question that will shape the future of space exploration and potentially redefine our relationship with the cosmos. As we stand on the cusp of a new era of space exploration, the question of lunar ownership is more relevant than ever. The story of lunar ownership is a tale as old as time, yet as current as tomorrow's news. The moon, our closest celestial neighbor, has been a constant source of mystery, inspiration, and ambition. Since the dawn of humanity, we've gazed up at this celestial body, and it's been a part of our myths, our stories, and our dreams. It was only a matter of time until we took our first steps on its dusty surface, forever etching our mark on the lunar landscape. Who can forget the historic moment when Neil Armstrong, representing all of humanity, took that giant leap for mankind in the summer of '69? That moment was a testament to our collective will and ingenuity. It was a clear sign that we, as a species, were not bound by the confines of our home planet. But as we ventured into the vast unknown expanse of space, we were confronted with questions we had never thought to ask. Questions of ownership, of rights, of boundaries. Who does the moon belong to? Can anyone lay claim to this celestial body? These questions led to the creation of the Outer Space Treaty, a document that aimed to govern our actions in space, preserving the moon and other celestial bodies for all of humanity. Yet the treaty left room for interpretation, and with the dawn of the 21st century, we saw corporations and individuals attempting to stake their claim on the moon. Private companies are now planning lunar missions, fueled by the promise of untapped resources and the allure of space tourism. The legal landscape is as uncharted as the lunar surface itself. The questions we grappled with during the Apollo era are still relevant today, and perhaps even more so, as we stand on the brink of a new frontier in space exploration. So, who owns the moon? Well, that's up for debate, but one thing is certain, our fascination with our nearest celestial neighbor is far from over.